fans, and welcome back to the home of all things rugby in Texas. Damn, I have missed you all. It's been way too long. On the last episode of the podcast, which was eons ago, we recapped round 2 of the Austin Derby between the Blacks and the Huns. Then the Gilgronis just came off an amazing victory over Houston for the Texas Cup, and then, the world collapsed and changed, and MLR paused, COVID happened, the season got canceled, and now we're leaving us here all with no rugby in the U.S. right now. But no rugby in the States, rugby other places, so that's kind of nice. Right now, college, club, youth, let's see, what else? High school are still on hold in the great state of Texas, as you've learned on Texas Rugby Monthly, every month. But there's no on-field rugby happening right now. And there is a flurry of off-field excitement that's happening on the MLR side, though. So what I figured is, what better way to kick off the new season of the Austin Rugby Podcast than with what's been probably the biggest announcement, and for the Gilgronis to bring on the head coach and the assistant coach for Austin. So please welcome onto the podcast for the first time, and hopefully not the last time, former player for the Warringah Rats, the Waratahs, and Manly Sea Eagles for you NRL fans, excuse me, and former head coach of the Warringah Rats and assistant coach for the Honda Heat, Mr. Sam Harris, and the former head coach of the previously mentioned Warringah Rats and former player for Warringah, ACT Brumbies, and of course, Wallaby number 797, Mr. Mark Gerrard. Gentlemen, welcome to the podcast and welcome to Austin.
Thanks, Dustin. Great to be here, mate. Very excited.
Yeah, it's good to have you. So it's bright and early in the morning over there for you guys right now, the afternoon here in Austin. Looks like the sun is shining in both locations, so that's always great.
We're actually in the same location practically. Like, we live about 8 kilometres away from each other in Sydney. And it is a beautiful day here. It's sunny, 26 degrees, very comfortable, and there's a little wave running down the beach.
Ah, man. Yeah, so there's a lot of things that we'll have to acclimate you all to the Austin area. One will be no waves, no surf, but we do have a nice river and some nice, community pools and stuff that we can we can take you to. But before we dive into other things, we, to learn more about you guys, there's a hard-hitting question of some noticeable similarities that I made in the introduction, as you both served as head coach for the Rats. And my question is, who had a better record as a coach? And then, of course, as it would turn out, who is the better coach?
You can take this one, Mark.
No, it's to me, it goes with experience. So obviously, young Sam as our head coach, I believe that he's probably the better coach of us two, and probably the more experienced in our coaching group this year. And not just that, with our local club here in Sydney called the Warringah Rats, Sam actually established a recruitment, a potential sort of path growth of our club, to where in the last 5 seasons that we've been, if not one of the top 3 teams in this Sydney Premier Club competition. And that's where Sammy started that off. What's that, Sam? Almost 10, 11 years ago now? Something like that, 11 years ago. And from what Sam had to start with, to be honest, was nothing. And obviously had to build from what our local club and where it needs to sort of project to. And it's funny how ironic that things work, that the LA head coach now came in, helped facilitate and actually grow the club. And I believe that was from the start of when Sam was the head coach at the club. So for me, it's a tremendous honour not only to coach in Austin, but also coach with probably my best friend. And I do hope that our relationship doesn't get in the way. And I hope he puts his foot in my backside if I put a foot wrong, which is good. And it's, as I said, it's always good to learn, especially from somebody that you trust. And I believe trust in coaching is a very big thing and can go a very long way.
And Dustin, I'll just jump in there just because Mark's being incredibly humble.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a pretty nice nice couple
Yeah,
of
thank
weeks
you,
there.
Mark. Mark had his first, real full-time coaching opportunity last season, and for a rookie coach to take the club to its third consecutive grand final and be within 10 minutes of a victory and a premiership. He also got the Coach of the Year award in the competition, which is an amazing effort. And my dad, who was his team manager, told me last night that he actually has got the record for the most consecutive wins in the club, which is 9 consecutive wins, which is no mean feat. And he probably didn't have the squad to do it last year, and he achieved really good things. So Mark's very accomplished as well, but still very early in his path. And, he accomplished a lot more in the game of rugby than I did, especially winning Super Rugby championships and Wallaby caps and victories over the All Blacks. So I think bringing that level of success to the group is valuable.
That's awesome. And it was almost as though Mark was reading my notes and skipping ahead a little bit, talking about other Warringah Rats who are in MLR right now. We'll come back to that question. Or we can go straight through it. So we'll just go to it. So you both actually played, and of course you both coached, but now Darren Coleman, who's the new head coach in LA, you guys are all Warringah alumni. What is it about the club in Sydney that not only produces high caliber players, but you're also now high caliber coaches? And I'll be, we'll inflate egos and stuff if we want to, but high caliber coaches that are now spreading out not just in Australia but overseas, and now, and of course, into MLR.
Can I take this one, Mark?
Definitely.
So in terms of a club, I think Warringah is a great club because it's a community-based club, and a big thought from them is to hire from within and get old boys to become coaches, and because they know what the club's about and what it stands for. And I think that's a very, very smart strategy, and it allows you to get coaches on the rise that are kind of right at the start of their journey. So it gives them the ability to learn and to build, and then to flourish. And so in terms of the club and our playing days, like me and Mark played there together when we were early doors. Like Mark was 18, still in high school, and I was 20 years of age, and so we played that early together. We've known each other since I was 16 and Mark was 14. We played rugby league together back then, and so as a club, it's just got a great community feel. And my vision for the coaching fraternity in terms of Warringah is another great club in Sydney is the Randwick Club, and they've got a very good network of coaches all over the world. Eddie Jones, Michael Checker. There's all types of names that I'm forgetting here, but what they've done is they've spread themselves all over the world, and kind of starting here. Gregor Townsend, he was an ex-Warringah player. He's now coaching Scotland. Like, there's what we want to do is kind of just get out amongst the world and make that Warringah pathway really strong and the network really strong.
Yeah, and that's to hear that is, I would hope that people who are watching and listening, the Austin fans are thinking that's a great kind of mentality to bring to Austin, bring to the U.S., right? Because, the goal for the U.S. rugby right now is to build up and build, the clubs and build the professional teams and the pathways and the academies so that we can then produce better overall rugby to compete at a higher level, both at the World Cup and, the ARC here in the U.S. So I think that's great to hear, and I appreciate that. And now we can go back to the normal thread of questions that I had to be good before Mark had a nice segue, but no, it's good. So for those that you mentioned it a little bit, Sam, you've got a background. Both of you have crossed over codes. You both played league. You both played union. I think if I researched it correctly, I believe Sam coached Mark at one time, and we'll talk about that in a little bit too. But I guess, Sam, if you wouldn't mind starting, since you're the head coach, and we'll have you go first. But we'd like to have a brief introduction for those who are watching of who you are, your playing days, and kind of your coaching history, and kind of what brought you all the way up to right before you came on with
Yep,
Austin.
sure. So I'll start right at the beginning and get straight into it. Grew up on the northern beaches of Sydney, which is a beautiful place to live, similar to maybe like a San Diego, and in a really good era of the world, I reckon. You know, before mobile phones and different things, and sport was life. You know, any sport I could get my hands on, I wanted to play, and top of the list at that when before I left high school. Top of the list was basketball. You know, also played baseball when I was a kid from ages 8 to 16. So just loved everything sport and got my path towards rugby league and rugby union. Stuck with rugby union to start off with. Played all my Australian schoolboys 19s 21 stuff. With rugby, toured the UK and Ireland, and then my professional career started with the Waratahs for 2 seasons, and that's where me and Mark were professionally together. And then after 2 seasons there, I got recruited over to rugby league, and I really was excited about that challenge. And I've always loved rugby league, but I really wanted to see if I could make it in that league as well, and made a pretty good fist of it. We're pretty close to making kind of the state of origin side, but didn't, obviously. But had a good 3-4 seasons in rugby league. Came back to rugby union with the Waratahs for 2 more. We got to a Super Rugby final in 2008, and then I went and played over in Japan for a season with the Honda Heat. Came back after that season and joined up with the Western Force for my final season. Unfortunately, arthritic knees ended my career, and I had to pull up at the age of 30. I would have liked to have been like Mark and played for another 7 years professionally, but that wasn't in my cards. So came back. As soon as I came back from Perth, made it be known that I wanted to be a head coach of Warringah. Thankfully, got very lucky, got the opportunity straight away. Had 2 seasons there. Had to leave just before the first week of the 3rd season to go take a job in Japan with the Honda Heat, back with the Honda Heat. Spent 4 years there, 4 great years, and then moved up to Tokyo, did another 3 years with the Ricoh Black Rams, and that was kind of, my real taste at, a team that could potentially go all the way if we did things right, and got a lot more exposure to kind of closer to a head coaching role. And then this opportunity came along, and I love American sports. I love America, and really, it's always interested me. I've always kept an eye on the MLR, but I honestly thought it was probably still 3 to 4 years away. But it's not. It's here. This season is critical. This season could be the make or break year, and to get an opportunity in this season, it really appealed to me. So I took that opportunity, and now I'm looking forward to it.
No. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's again, like you said, it's both codes. Baseball. That's not. I played baseball too. So basketball. Man, you've kind of been the all sport athlete there apparently. So no cricket or anything thrown in there as well.
Played cricket, everything.
Polo or
Jack of all trades, master of none is a very key saying over here in Australia.
Oh no, it's we have that here too. They're the man who wears many hats. So Mark, you too have had a great rugby career, both off and on the pitch, and now off the pitch on the sidelines. What's your background? How did you get to just before this job with Austin?
So, and again, very similar pathway to Sam. Grew up playing league. At the age of 18, had the opportunity to switch from rugby league over to rugby union as a professional. Still in high school, which sort of blew me away a little bit, signing that contract. And from there, it kind of sort of manifested into this 19-year career. And it's funny, as much as I have done, there is... I'm all about sort of balance and life and everything else. So it was easy for me to play and enjoy what I was doing, but I just, having kids young also, I had no choice but to grow up and mature quite quickly. So from the age of 18, Obviously with the Waratahs like Sam for 2 seasons, and then probably didn't get as much opportunity as I would like, and still only being just under 20 years old, I probably a little bit too ambitious, I believe, at that age. But then again, if you're not, it's very hard to sort of push yourself and thrive to sort of be the ultimate or the best you can be.
You were the youngest professionally signed players for the Waratahs or in Super Rugby history at that particular time? Or is it still the youngest player ever to sign or the first player straight out of high school to sign?
I honestly can't really remember.
Come on, man.
I think it's myself and James O'Connor, the youngest to sign. I think James O'Connor's the youngest.
Okay.
I think, to be honest, I really can't remember. But I'll never forget this. It was actually on a Thursday afternoon. I was coming home from school, and then a famous rugby coach, and again, Sammy, that's another one, Bob Dwyer, who was from the Randwick Club. He was coaching over in Europe at the time, and my father got a phone call and said, "Can I talk to Mark Gerrard?" Because we share the same name. And my dad's on the phone and talking to Bob Dwyer about signing contracts. And Dad's like, "Mate, I'm 54 years old. Like, I think you might have the wrong mark here." And then grabbed me, and then I jumped on the phone. That's typical of my old man. He's like that. And then my dad said, "There's a phone call for you." So he gave me the phone call. And as I'm holding the phone, Dad's sort of standing right in front of my face. I'm like, "Yes, it's Mark. How you going?" And then conversation went from there. So
yeah, man.
I went on and signed, and after the 2 years with the Waratahs, moved to the Brumbies. With the Brumbies, it was a whole new environment. That when you talk about at that stage of Super Rugby, because it was still a very infant competition. It was only at that time, I was 6 years at the time, 6 years old, that competition.
The Super
12 back then, yeah. And so it kind of grew into a quite a large sort of sporting icon, especially for rugby. And for spending my time down in Canberra, I ended up being about 8 years in Canberra, and mate, had a great time. Won a Super Rugby title, and that's where I sort of grew into understanding the game a whole lot more and respecting the game a whole lot more.
Yeah.
And learning from those players. From there, I moved at the age of 26. I moved over to Japan. I just found that my opportunity in Australia was probably coming to an end, even though I was only 26 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of had the foresight not to look at what was here in Australia. And like Sam, I moved over to Japan and played for a team called NTT Communications in Tokyo. And they were a second division team, and I purposely went there not to go up to first division, to actually go back and enjoy rugby and what rugby gave me originally. And from there, I spent my 2 years with them. I ended up moving back to Australia in 2011, took up a Melbourne Rebels contract for 2 years. And that was obviously the first 2 seasons of the Melbourne Rebels in the Super Rugby competition. So I jumped at that opportunity. And after those 2 years, again, as much as I love Australia rugby, I didn't want to be here and to play rugby anymore. There was nothing against it. It was just something in me. And at the time, we had a young family, my wife and I, and we chose to head back to Japan. And so in doing so, I signed back with a team called Toyota Industry Shuttles, which is Toyota Shockey, what they're called now. And I spent 7 years there, and mate, had a great time. And that's probably why, and that's what prolonged my career, actually, I believe, is actually playing in Japan. And not so because I wanted to keep playing, it was because of the environment and the group of people that I was playing with. So at that stage, I played there, and then obviously moving from Japan after my time at 36, I retired and chose to come home. And choosing to come home for 12 months, I wanted to step away from rugby altogether and just find out what normality means, or whatever that is to me and my family. And in the course of those 18 years, my wife and I, we had 4 kids, and so we're juggling a lot. And in my last 6 years of playing professional rugby in Japan, my family were based here in Australia, and I was based in Japan, which was very difficult. And that's why when Sam was at Rico, I would constantly call Sam up, "Do you mind if I come crash in your lounge every couple of weekends?" Because that's family to me, and I'm all about family. So I kind of just had to clear my head and hear the kids yell and scream and feel all that. That's kind of what I really missed. And that's something that I probably do regret as a father, but at the same time, I can't regret that. It's, it's a double-edged sword for me because it's an opportunity that I gave our family. Mm-hmm. And so in doing so, retired for a year, not wanting to be part of rugby. I actually went back. A thing that I had in me, I wanted to go back and play where I started, play rugby league for my local Narrabeen Sharks, and then played for the Ringa Rats. And silly idea at 36 years old to play 2 contact sports back-to-back on a Saturday and Sunday, in which I did. I woke up after my first 2 games and I thought, you idiot, what are you doing this for? And after that, obviously the following season, towards the end of that season, the head coach, Darren Coleman, moved on. Obviously had an opportunity elsewhere at another rival club here in Sydney. And there weren't too many. They say there weren't too many coaches. I believe there's a few coaches floating about, but I think they wanted somebody within who would probably demand respect and trust straight away. And the opportunity was to obviously be the head coach of Warringah, and following a very similar footpath to Sammy. And so I did that, and it's funny, I had a funny old year. It wasn't, everybody perceived it to be a great season. It was a great season. For me personally, it was a roller coaster of emotions, and Sammy would probably know that because I would call Sam on multiple occasions and just get feedback and information because, I believe that rugby's not personal. Rugby's a sport. It's a game. So we're obviously trying to teach the game to the players, and I had to sort of take that emotion out of it, and it was really difficult because some people think it's personal. Yeah, that part was difficult. So, and I've only just retired. Like 6 months prior, now I'm their head coach. So, I'm telling them what to do, finger pointing at them, that type of thing. So that's kind of where my life sort of grew. And then obviously, mate, I stepped away from there. Just wanted to sort of get back into life with my wife and kids because I've missed a whole lot of time together. Yeah. And, as I said, my son turned 16, our eldest son turned 16 tomorrow. And, we're going to just cherish those times. But the opportunity to come and coach with Sam when he offered me this position, I'd be silly not to take it up because, as I said, coaching is about trust and development, and I believe that I can learn more off Sam than what's probably Sam can learn off me, as well as actually understand the professional environment again. Now, the game's obviously changed in the time that I've retired, but the game itself hasn't changed. It's just obviously all about learning that pathway. And so I'm hugely grateful to Sammy giving me this opportunity. And that's something that I'll definitely hold sort of dear to my heart. And mate, as I said, it's a tremendous honour. As Sammy said, the MLR has been to me a sleeping giant for a couple of years. And like Sammy, it was very similar. I believed it was going to take off later. Yeah. Now that it's here, it's up to us to help grow that MLR competition and actually create that what I believe will be a global competition. And you'll find that a lot of teams around the world will want to be a part of it. And if we can do our job right as coaches, which I know that we will, I think it'll be a beautiful spectacle for the United States in the next couple of years.
That's awesome. And it's good to hear you say that. We as Americans and American rugby fans, we don't often see the perception that exists outside of our, for better or worse, in many cases, we don't see the perception of what goes on in the rest of the world outside of America or outside of the United States. And to hear that people and teams and clubs around the world are saying, well, the MLR over there, and, keep an eye out for them. Like, it could be something big. So that's really great to hear. And of course, the one thing that, Mark, you didn't talk about was your time as a Wallaby and playing at the highest level of rugby in a World Cup or anything like that. But yeah, we'll just ignore that whole part of your entire rugby career.
I don't mean to talk. I'm not talking ill of it or anything like that. It's just that was my pathway, and there was opportunities, like you said. I was tremendously lucky to be in a position that I was at the Brumbies to get given that Wallaby opportunity, and to travel the world to represent your country, and to wear it 24 times. To see the world with some really good friends. I've got a lot of family around the world. So, to sort of, and again, to make them proud if there was a thing, mate, I was just as proud knowing that they had a huge smile on their face. And like Sammy said, I have no gear left because I have a Tongan background and all my cousins and family take everything. So the only thing I've got, I think I've got a backpack that's left.
No, I just had to give you a hard time on that one. So it's on a bit.
I'll see you in January, Dustin.
Yeah,
don't you worry.
Sounds good. So let's talk about, how you both came to join Austin, right? So you're both doing separate things in Japan and Australia respectively. Before COVID, obviously. Sam, how did the call, MLR ended, we had Andrew Saniola and Brent Simmons who were here. And then we had, just a completely different staff, who was involved. COVID happened and everything changed. Sam, how did you get that call from, I guess it would be Matt Burgess or somebody within the organization who reached out? How did they kind of touch base and say, hey, do you want to come to Austin, Texas and coach an MLR team?
It was, it's kind of like a lot of different pathways. Actually, Mark initially raised my attention to it a long time ago, like before last season started, about an opportunity to come to America because of the new ownership buying a couple of teams, but that's where it was left, and then we kind of parked it for a while, and then we've both got a very good friend who's involved in the club, or he's not involved in the club, but kind of involved in the process, and there was a bit of a remit from the coaching staff from the ownership group that they wanted it to have a real Australian flavour, and as you can see from the coaching appointments, that's what it's got. But they it's Australian ownership, and they want to have good young Australian coaches that are going to see out the vision of what the ownership group wants to do, and that's a lot of things. But first and foremost is it wants to grow the game of rugby in America, and that's kind of our duty to do that. And kind of the easiest way for us to do that is to have success on the field, but then also in the background to work really hard with youth development and the programs there. But second of all is just to have a lot of fun doing it. And so, and some coaches are single-minded, goal focused, others are process focused, and for what our guys wanted was coaches that are here for success, definitely, but also to make sure that it's an enjoyable time for the players and for the coaches and for everybody involved, and to play really good footy while we're at it. So they achieved that. They got good young Australian coaches, and hopefully we can see that vision out with both enjoyment and success. Yeah.
So the call, Mark, did the call come from Sam, or Sam, did you call Mark and say, hey, we're going to go to Austin? How did that work out?
No, I had a quick conversation with Sam. Was it probably late last year, maybe, or early this year, something like that. And then with having that conversation, I sort of parked my jets and I left it to Sam. And Sammy said, "Mate, leave it with me, and I'll get back to you, and we'll work everything else out." And then, as I said, trust is a big thing, and I trust that man on that screen, so I'll run with that.
Nice. I mean, it's good to hear that there's a bit of enthusiasm from you all as well. Obviously, if there wasn't, I would be very concerned, as would all the fans. So we'll make sure that we know that you guys have the enthusiasm to come here and change some stuff. You both talked about it. You have families. You guys have in Japan and back and forth. And Mark, you were talking about being distant. So now, if I remember correctly, Tokyo to Japan or to Sydney is about an 8-hour flight.
Yep, 9 hours, pretty good.
9 hours, 9 hours. The flight's a little bit longer to Austin. Are your families going to come with you to the great state of Texas, or is there going to be a bit of separation there?
Yeah, I think from my point of view, I don't do it any other way. My family's got to be with me the whole time. Very family orientated, but that's not the only reason. Like I can't do it without them, and I think Mark has learnt that lesson the hard way. in a different scenario. You know, he was a player, and so yeah, from my point of view, the family's coming, and I'm pretty sure from Mark's point of view, the family's coming too.
If the family aren't going, unfortunately, I won't be there. So they're coming.
That's good. Well, the good thing about Austin is it's a pretty family-friendly place. You know, it's again, my wife and the two of us as a family, like we truly enjoy Austin. And it's definitely one of those places where you can go out to any restaurant and see, you know, parents eating outside with their kids in strollers. And we're talking some of the nicest restaurants in town, or you can go, you know, all kinds of places to go jump in a water hole or eat barbecue or whatever you want to do. So that's hopefully you guys will feel glad in selecting Austin, knowing that it is an extremely family friendly place. Like there's plenty.
I just feel sorry for our neighbours because my kids don't have a turn off or a mute button. They allowed everything's out in the street.
They say everything's bigger in Texas, including personalities and how loud they are. So maybe they'll fit right in with that. So I don't know.
Just speaking about bigger in Texas, I'm concerned for our waistlines, our pants, with the barbecue. But I can't wait to get my laughing gear around some brisket and some ribs and all that stuff.
Yeah. I can tell you anecdotally, I moved here. I'm not a native Texan, just as a caveat to everybody who listens. I think we've talked about this before for you all, for both of you right here. Not a native Texan. When we first moved here, I cannot tell you, I probably gained a good 8 to 10 pounds in the first month or so here, just because we were eating tacos and barbecue and avocado, like everything that we could get our hands on, and the food here is phenomenal.
And you look like quite a lean build, yeah, Dustin? Would I be right in assuming that?
I'd like to think that I'm a lean build, so I'll take the compliment.
Both Mark and I, if we look at food, we gain weight. So it's like it's going to be a real roller coaster for us.
Yeah, I've been bigger in my days. Back when I was playing rugby in my collegiate days, I was a good 265. So I was much larger. So
wow.
Yeah, slimmed down a little bit. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. That's when you learn how to eat better.
Have you played rugby before?
Well, hey, yeah. Oh yeah. I played for 13
What
years.
Position?
I played tight head prop. And then I moved to hooker a little bit. And then after I lost about 100 pounds, I moved back to 8.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then, whatever. But only played 15s, never played 7s because that's just ridiculous. I don't enjoy that amount of running. No rugby league because obviously rugby league is not a big thing in the U.S. In fact, I don't know why, but some American rugby fans do not care for rugby league. I thought it would be the gateway drug from the NFL to rugby union. Just kind of work on that. We can talk about that. We can talk a whole other podcast about that one. But it's I think rugby is a growing sport in the U.S. Some people have said, well, it's kind of at flattening, but I think with MLR and the interest in it and the national coverages on CBS and ESPN and the like, it's really pushing. It's pushing more rugby in front of people that never had it pushed in front of them before. Growing up when I started playing, like I was lucky enough to play a little bit in high school, which is this is back in the late 90s. Mark will understand that since we were the same age. But it's a long time ago.
Same build too.
It's so long ago. But yeah, rugby was not ever on television, and you rarely saw it. You'd catch a glimpse every now and then, usually of probably an international test match. AFL was all over the place on ESPN2 at the time, but regular rugby union wasn't common. But fell in love with the sport, and that's what led us to here. I too, Sam, you talked about knee injuries. I tore my ACL and MCL and PCL at one time.
At the same time?
Multiple knee surgeries. Yeah.
Wow.
Playing basketball.
Yeah.
Not playing rugby.
Yeah. And I think that's the reason for my issues as well.
Yep. Yeah. So it is what it is. But hey, we're going to take a short break. We're going to come back and we're going to talk 2021, how the team's shaping up. We're going to get their thoughts on how the strategy and what kind of rugby we're going to play. And then we are going to put Mark and Sam to the test as new Austinites. We're going to give them the Texas Austin Rugby Quiz. There's really no name for it because it's the first thing I just made up. So we're going to have some questions, but we're right back after this. Well, welcome back, everyone. We're here with the new coaches for Austin, Sam Harris, Mark Gerrard. We've been talking about how they came to join the club. We talked about their history. Some questions I didn't get to, but I may come back to here in a minute, talking about the rugby league days. There's some very interesting comparisons that I may try to make, but we'll see how it goes. So let's get down and talk about 2021. Right? There's still quite a few gaps. As I see it, and as some of the fans see it, that we need to address. Right now, we got centers 8, and of course, just filling out a full roster of 35 plus players. How are things looking on your end? I think we've talked that we can't make any special announcements of any players that can be confirmed or not. So we'll kind of push that aside we'll let the marketing team for the AGs do that. But how are things going as far as preparing to have a full team ready to go? You know, training starts when for you guys? February. Yeah. So going into February, how are things looking for you all to have, that complete squad set up and ready to go?
Yeah, in terms of signings,
just having signings and just having, the plan to get people here. We were talking just offline a minute ago about visa issues, getting all that taken care of ahead of time so that we, aren't running into that again. And then how are you kind of preparing? I guess you'd have to talk about preparing things in still a time of COVID here in the U.S. I know that you guys in Australia are back to having fans at games. We still have fans, but it's still kind of hit and miss in some locations. What's your mindset around that right now? But let's talk about filling out the team and kind of how you're going with that right now.
Yeah, in terms of filling out the team, we had pretty much finalised the squad like 6 weeks ago.
Wow.
We haven't finalised all the paperwork and we haven't got all the media ready to announce everything, but the team's been finalised for a long time now, which is good, which gives us a lot of stability and the opportunity for the coaches now to go to work and come up with building the pieces around that, which is positive, really good. And then in terms of visas, that's the $1 million question.
I bet it's more than that.
Yeah, you're right. And it's there's a lot of variables and different things and stuff that's out of our control. But what we could control was making decisions early about the squad so that gives the lawyers enough time to make sure that the visa petitions are put in early enough to make sure that they're squared off by the time we start in February.
I ask you that kind of, you're talking about, having time to fill out the squad. How much of the players who have been signed already and who we're about to announce have you had control of? Obviously some people were announced prior to the announcement of you all as coaches. What was kind of your involvement with that? Have you been kind of, behind the wheel the entire time, pulling all the chains and everything to make sure everything, you get the players that you want to get to the team?
Yeah. It's obviously there was some 2-year contracts involved and multi-year contracts involved, and there was in answer to your question, I had complete control of recruitment and making sure that who I want to stay with it that was already pre-existing in the group stays, and had ideas about players that I wanted to bring in that I think could really add to the group and to the culture and to the game plan. And then kind of made moves around, players that serve the team really well, but just weren't in my picture.
No, it's totally understandable. I mean, we talk, there's quite a few players that we've signed to bring back. There's quite a few that were with the team last season. One of those players being, Jamie McIntosh. Whopper's coming back. Obviously he's kind of come back in a player coach role, forwards coach. How do you kind of see that working out within the organization right now?
Yeah, I think a lot of international players within the MLR are already doing this. This is not a foreign concept. Whether the team gives them the title or not, I think Whopper was doing this last season, probably from what I've heard from other sources. So, look, I've played against Jamie. I've known him for a long time and have reconnected recently after joining the AGs, and he is a great guy, great for team culture. And a fair footy player.
He's done all right.
And knows a thing or two about scrummaging, and so he'll be our scrum coach, and he'll also look after our attack and breakdown. And he's currently doing the same sort of role with the Otago team in the ITM, and it's just great for him to get those learnings and to be part of a semi-professional organisation like that are week in, week out in the trenches and playing at such a high class. So that's a really good competition. So he's growing and learning and bringing lots of ideas to the table once we get started.
Obviously you're talking about other players, MLR, international players. Austin's got quite a few of them, especially in the back line. Obviously, Mark, you played in the back line. You were, played in the back line. I think I saw you play a couple different positions throughout your career at fullback, wing, center. What are some of the communication that maybe you've had with Kurt Morath, who's coming back, and some of the other lads so far that kind of gets you excited for the back line? I've talked about it on Texas Rugby Monthly last time. Talking about a pretty dangerous back line that we may have, which I think is great for the team. With Frank Halai and, Zinzan and Roderick Waters, young players. What's been kind of the communication you've had with that back line so far that gets you really excited for 2021?
Yeah, probably the more exciting part from me is the balance that we have across our back line. I know Sammy's been doing a lot of work in and around, the play recruitment and how we want to play and plays that suit that style that we want to play. So I think it's very important. It's very early days, mind you, with talking to the players individually about sort of how we want to play and certain things. So what we initially wanted to do was actually get the right players, as Sammy said, that will help our group grow. That's individually and collectively, and not always having to rely on the coaches for that sort of forefront vision of themselves to be better. So to have that group and to have the players that we do, especially as you said, the back line, it's pretty exciting. And I actually went over it last week, just doing combinations while I was in bed where my wife was getting annoyed so I could turn the light off and go to sleep. I just was scribbling down. It's just one of those things. It's good. I kind of need to get back into it more and just probably put my head down. And again, I'm at a bit of a transition. I'm trying to tie off work so I can actually have my head stuck into the coaching role and what I need to do. But in the roster that we have and the playing group that we have, especially for our back line, it's exciting when you talk about those players coming through and you've got the experience and you've got the joys of youth, but you've got guys that want more for individually as well as collectively. So that part's extremely exciting, and especially the way what we're going to play. Bit hard to share that right now because we're still trying to evolve it. So there's a full understanding, especially as coaching group first, and then we can obviously implement that through the playing group. But at this stage, when you talk about the players, and as you said, when you talk about sort of strengthening that back line, I'm really excited. And like Sam, is we want to play a particular a brand that attracts people to Austin. That you look at us and go, well, hold on, I want to be there. I want to do what they're doing. So that's the type of thing that we're, and even I'm wanted striving for the playing group. And as you said, like we have got I believe, a very strong backline. We're just going to be able to harness it, nurture it, and make sure that they can work well together in how we want to play collectively. And then, you know what, balance and enjoyment, you'll see that in the forefront when we come play all our home games.
Yeah. I guess, the previous seasons, Austin it's been tough because always working on visas and getting people over, not having the teams ready to go. How important was it for you, Sam, just right off the bat to get a core group of guys that you wanted to come back to, to the team in 2021, and then also, to really have to know and to let people know that, hey, here's who's coming in. Here's, again, we know that there's players who, are still coming. You have your whole team laid out, so far. And that's great. How important was it to you to get that set up and get that established and get that core group of guys back for, from last season? Because again, if we look at the last game of the season against Houston, before COVID hit, it was a great game. We came back. We actually played, from my perspective, played probably one of the best games that we played in probably about 2 years. Cohesively, that is. So how important was it to you to get those players back? You're on mute. Gotta love technology.
So I swore I wasn't going to do that. It was really important to retain, the really good players in the group, because as you said, that last performance against Houston was great. It was a great win.
Finally,
both Mark and I were watching. Yeah, finally, and I think there was all kinds of trials and tribulations for the team. And they came close in other games. They played really attractive rounds of footy and all the rest of it. And I think Brett and Andrew did a great job. And I thought also what happened was Mick Byrne came in at the start of the season, and he just kind of really showed the team a roadmap to success and to hard work and to purpose, like how to train with purpose and make sure that every post you make is a winner. And I think he did a great job of that. And so whilst the win against Houston was great, it was only one win, and we need to make sure that I knew that we needed to make sure that the Austin area and the team has gone through some hard times of late, and what I wanted to do was make sure that we had a really strong roster going into next season, and we've done that. But in back to your question, make sure we retain the players and make sure that we also retain the identity of what Austin Rugby stands for and who has come before them and what they stood for, and make sure that we hold on to that identity and then grow off that. And so with the players that we've retained, I think we put ourselves in a position to then recruit internationally and within America and Canada to build a really strong squad. I think with that, also with the visa question as well, I made sure that if we didn't get any visas allowed, we still had a team on the park and we still had a team that can compete. So I've got two squads. I've got I've got one that's definitely going to be in the country, and we're going to go well. And then if we do get every player across to America and our visas get accepted, then we're going to be exceptionally strong.
I'll definitely hope that we have the latter of the two, where we have all of our players game one
that's
ready
right.
to go, filled out.
And I think externally, expectations might be still low, but I think internally, expectations are going to be high.
I mean, I think that, I don't know how much you guys dive into the world of Reddit or any other of the social media channels. Mark, as you said, we know more about your life on social media through your wife than through you. I think that people have the expectation or the thought about Austin definitely goes back to the winless season last year, 0-6, or the year before, 0-16, and kind of the changes that happened, and then kind of losing very close games. The second, third, fourth game of the season last year too. So I think that people have this expectation like, well, it's just Austin. Well, whereas if you actually get down and watch some of those games last season, you talked about it, Sam, like those games were very those games were close. Like, yeah, we had the tie against Utah, and we had the other games too that we played quite hard. Again, not having the full team, but again, it's one of those things where so close. And the game against Rooney, where I thought the final score was going to be about 65-63, and it, lots of scoring and high energy play, which is different than what we played the first 2 seasons. So glad that you're saying that, and glad to hear that you've got the team that you want to have in and the style that you want that you're going to play. Speaking of style, we did talk and we sent a message out to a bunch of the fans because this isn't just about me asking you questions. I wanted fans to get involved. We had some fans reach out, and kind of with that, that rugby style, one of the fans, Houston native, Grant Cole, and who also works with the Rugby HTX and a former colleague in Texas Rugby Monthly, he wanted to know what kind of rugby should Austin fans expect from the team in 2021? What's the style of play that you anticipate to bring to the AGs? Well, Mark, you want to take that one and see if it lines up?
Yeah, sure.
It lines up with Sam.
Yeah, I'll throw myself under the bus here. No, I anticipate we're going to play a very free-flowing game.
Yep.
The way that we want to play is a very attractive brand of rugby, and whatever that means, whatever that looks like, I can't tell you right now what it's going to be. How we want to do it is obviously teach the guys the game, but they need to understand the game themselves as well, because knowledge is and can go a very long way in this game, and plays a huge factor in understanding the flow of when to play, when not to play, control the moments, all that type of stuff. So they're little small elements of the game which I believe that need to be taught as well. But also, I want us to score points. I want us to play, as I said, in a very attractive brand of rugby. And whatever that looks like, I know potentially what it could look like, but I can't tell you what it's going to look like. It's just something that you're going to have to wait and see. But when I say that I want us to be a very highly skilled, highly intense, motivated team to play. And I believe that you will see that through the AGs come through this season. So that's something that we want to implement early and encourage them. There's no fear of failure, because you can't. The only way to learn is from falling over, falling down. You need to go through it. And the boys have been doing that. The last few seasons, I want to encourage them to actually back themselves and trust in what we do together, because I know that it'll work. I know it does work. It's just about putting it on the field at the right times and the right moments. And I believe it's going to be a very attractive way of playing rugby. And that'll just show, what I believe Austin is all about. Austin is a very open city. It's a very open town. Now, I want us to be the same when we play our rugby. I want us to be quite open in how we play. I want us to be very attractive like Austin. I want to have that stance and make sure that the boys understand that this is who we are. This is how we want to play, and let's show them how we do it.
Sam, did he do a good job of kind of going with the philosophy that you're having? Make sure that we're all right on.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. We've discussed this at length. We definitely want to play an attractive brand of footy. Continuity wise, hopefully offloads. With a team and a group of players. Back to recruitment, a lot of teams talk about a no dickhead policy, and I'm not preaching that we have that, but what I am preaching that we do have, however many people that are going to play for us, they're going to be good people, and they're going to be able to play the rugby that we want to play, and that's high continuity and the skill to execute any pass that they need to when they need to, and then I don't want people to walk away from this or listening to this to think that we're going to play this loose brand of rugby that we're just going to throw the ball around. That's not going to be it. And we are going to be incredibly physical. And Mark's going to be looking after the attack. I'm going to be looking after the defence. And whilst we want to score a lot of points, I don't want to let a lot of points in, So we want to be extremely physical, and we will have a high line speed. And in all facets of the game, we kind of want to dominate and in an impressive fashion that draws fans to the game. So, and on top of that, we've spoken about a really hot backline, which we have. I think our set piece is going to be the difference.
The backline is nice. I mean, listen, I'm excited.
Thanks, Dustin. That's nice. The backline's nice.
Listen, come on, we talked about where I played. I I never played in the back line. Never had, just couldn't do it. So, but no, I am excited about that forward pack. It's, when you have people like, Wappa, who's, and Mason Peterson and Larome, and, again, CEO coming in there as well into the second row. And you've got Cam Dodson, who's young. He's young kid, really excited. We'll actually having him on the podcast here in a couple of weeks too, so that'll be nice. So we're gonna, the guys are great. I'm actually more excited about the back, the loose forwards than anything else. I think Dominic Bailey and Damakina and Mo Abdominan, like they are, for me, like they are some of the fastest and most aggressive players, and I see a lot of similarities between Damakina and like Ardi Savia. I think that he plays a lot like him, the same build, same size. Like, so I'm, I like Dom. Dom's a great guy. So I'm excited to see those guys. Yes. Set pieces are great. Backline is also great. We like the whole team. So it's not we're not playing favorites, Mark. Don't worry about it.
Oh no, I'm with you. Like Sammy, I'm forwards. For me, scrum line out set piece. If we're dominant in those areas going forward, mate, we're just the gravy train on the end. Those guys are they're our engine room. And that's, if you look at a car, we're just the outside of the car.
The pretty ones.
Those blokes are everything else.
the pretty parts, right? No, but it is exciting. Set pieces, lineouts. If we won't say any names of people who are allegedly signed to the team, but once it does get announced, to talk about the excitement of lineouts, the engine room, that second row is going to be stacked full of workhorses, and guys who come with a high pedigree and a lot of experience, which I think is great. I think for the team.
Dustin, I'm happy for you to speculate, mate, about names that are coming, but we are just in no position to confirm or deny. That's all.
I'll be kind, and I won't mention any names from any former clubs around the world. We'll leave that up for another time. Keep the marketing team with the Gilgronis happy with me, so I don't get too much in trouble with that.
Sure.
You talked about bringing players on. One of the other questions, Stefan Smith asked if you're open to having international players come in for a short trial period. I don't know how that would look with MLR, especially given with visas. And also with, the different, the timing of play is about the same time as Super Rugby would get started off. And, you've got Pro 14 or 14 right now, 16 eventually. I don't know how that's working out with South Africa. But, those times, what's your thoughts on bringing kind of trial players over? I don't know how that best works, but I did want to make sure that we did answer their question.
Yeah. Just from my point of view, I think they're a great concept to bring them over.
Yeah, right.
If you've got the budget to do it, and I don't know if we do.
Mario told you was free at one point, I thought. Yeah. If you get a couple $1 million.
If we're talking those kinds of names, and they're open to come over, they've got like a 4-week block that they could potentially join the team for next to no money. I'd be interested in having that conversation. Don't worry about that. But in terms of, we've spoken at length about the squad, and what we haven't spoken about in recent times from Austin's DNA, there hasn't been a lot of stability or security for the players or the coaching staff, really. And what I want to make clear is that the guys that I've brought here is because both Mark and I believe in them as players, and I want them to know that they're our guys, and they're here for a reason. They wouldn't be here if they weren't. So if we weren't to bring in anyone, I'd be happy, because I know that we've got the squad to make good things happen.
And that's completely understandable. And kind of to dovetail into that, again, I don't know how the question, good question, but it's hard for me to judge how that actually would work out from the MLR standpoint, just getting the players signed and contracts and everything. So John Woolley, who is one of the co-founders of the Austin Rugby Supporters Group, this kind of ties into the previous question about bringing players in. He wants to know, he wants to know what your short and long-term goals you're aiming to achieve with the organization. What are you going to project for this year? And then again, building out that, the next couple of years, as you said, there's been a lot of instability in Austin, and it's been hard as a supporters group, as fans, to say, yep, we're ready to go. But what are your goals that you want to achieve, short and long term here?
Mark, you got the same ideas as me, mate. So you can this one.
Mate, short term for us as the AGs, from my view, is exposure. Now, we need to create positive enjoyment in that exposure, both as the playing group on and off the field. And obviously, we said this earlier, I think off air, that we actually want to get out a little bit more to the community and to actually show that, this is why we're here, this is what we're about. On the flip side of that, when you talk about long goals, is success. We want to be successful. The more that we are successful on the field, it will naturally grow who we are within the Austin community. Now, that's probably small to big picture off field. On field, I want to make sure that the community sees who we are and how we play. Mate, we're passionate. We want to do what we want to do. We want to make Austin proud. And obviously, at the end of that comes success. So short term is actually be really, really sort of constructive in how we want to start, especially for us, because I believe this is a new opening of who we are at the AGs. And then if you want to look at long term, I'm talking about we can look back in 5 years and go, you know what, Sam and Mark help establish what the AGs are all about. And it's like your elite clubs around the world. So you talk your Saracens, you talk your Crusaders, they had to start somewhere. And that's something that we want to do for the AGs, is to start right where we are when we get over there, even now, for instance. And then come 5, 6 years down the track, you look back on all this and go, well, hold on, we grew this to this point here, and this is where we want to stay. Nice. And that's kind of something that's long term, and that's something that we're looking to do. And, for Sam and I, this is not a 12 months, 18 months. Like, we want to be there for 5 or 6 years to help grow and establish and actually help grow the MLR on a national scale and a global scale.
Nice.
But first and foremost for us is to make sure that the AGs have their DNA within the Austin community and the United States as well.
Sam, are you kind of locked in on that? Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, for sure. Probably the only or not amendment, but just add on to that is short term, also success. Like we want to win it. Like we've got the group to do it. It's on me and Mark and the rest of the coaching group to make sure that we facilitate and make sure that we put things in place to allow that to happen. And then if things pan out like we think it will, then hopefully we get success at the end of the season as well.
I think it's great to know that it's not just, like you said, 6 months, 12 months, whatever it may be. Like, this is, you're planning for the long term, and, things don't happen overnight. And I talked with Matt Burgess last year a lot about this, about the plan, and what they wanted to bring to the Austin community. And this next question will kind of tie into that as well. And it's exciting to hear what the Loyals LLC Loyals Group wants to bring to the Austin area. Yet LA too, they have their team, but what that will bring to them, bring to us here as Austin fans, as players, as youth, as whatever it may be. So glad to know that you guys are definitely in step with that. So kind of to tie in with that, Matthias Quiroga, he asked, will the AGs have an under 18 or academy team that you guys will look to build? Now, knowing that Rugby HTX, Houston just did it. It was also announcements from, I believe, San Diego and New England as well. And maybe Old Glory did it too. And then, of course, Atlanta has their 404 pathway. Do you guys have any plans to start developing that and building out that academy, or building the steps, having the building blocks to create that academy? Yeah, that was the answer. Yep. That was the answer. Yep.
No, we're in talks. Yeah, I think I was just hesitating a little bit because I think until this point I've kind of done the legwork, but from probably here moving forward, Mark's going to be the face of this. So we're definitely going to. Youth development's a huge marker for us and a huge marker for the MLR as well, and for USA Rugby. So it's a bit of a different model from other countries and probably different to what USA Rugby would like to do, but they're their hands are tied and they need to entrust the MLR clubs to invest in youth rugby. So we'll have a program for under 14s, we'll have a program for under 18s, and then we'll also have a senior academy. So if there's those transition athletes after high school that are looking for a rugby opportunity, it'll be within the senior academy. So this is a huge part of our duty to Austin and to American rugby to make sure that we grow players, we grow coaches, we grow referees, we grow administrators. Like we've stated already, we think that the competition as a whole is about to just blow up, but what we want to do in the background is make sure that we've also got things in place that make success sustainable. Yes, we could always recruit good foreigners to the team and hopefully, fingers crossed, that they go really well. But to real ultimate success, it has to come from within, and it has to come from, that under 14 level exposure to rugby, and then at the under 18 level, make sure that the identified talent get exposure to really good coaching, so that dovetail into performance and hopefully selection into an MLR team or a college team or whichever path it is. And that one's a little bit hard to make definitive, but all we've got to do at that level is make sure that players get really good coaching, and so that they understand the game and what they're trying to achieve. And then from a senior academy point of view, it'll pretty much be like an AGB's team. Yep. So like a second team that plays a tier under and play against other MLR teams that are in that B kind of category, and then that exposes those senior academy players to like another level of rugby, and then it makes it easier for us to identify talent and other teams to identify talent as well. So so it's not just a answer, but it's like there's a lot of planning that's been involved and a lot of people working behind the scenes in this one, and we've only just recently kind of really confirmed which path we're going to take, because especially from our point of view, it's really hard to know because we've never been to Austin before. Like, can't wait to get there, but to not know the lay of the land and make decisions like this is hard. But we've put a lot of time and effort into it. It's a really strong belief system of ours that for us to maintain success, we need to build this.
And I think that's when you talk about the pathways, and I think the importance, we can literally have a very heated debate with many people around USA Rugby about what they haven't done right or what they have done right, what people think that they've done right, but they haven't. But you're right. They should be taking kind of a key from MLR and building those academies and the pathways. We've talked on, I've talked with different people about it before. It's important that style, that structure of how people go about the under 14s, under 18s, senior level academy, etc., MLR, that is carried out everywhere, and we can build into that. More so, we still have the club level rugby in the US, which is always going to be prevalent because there's just a ton of rugby players, but building out that academy level will feed into what people would hope to be, USA Eagles and a better, more experienced rugby squad going into the future of World Cups coming down the road. Just people talk about USA's 2031 bid for the World Cup here. So one would hope that you would have, again, that right structure that you were talking about in place. Talking about the local clubs and building that out, there is and you've probably heard, there's a strong history of rugby in Austin and very heated rivalries, and a lot of it's either black or blue, Huns or blacks, things like that. They have all kinds of stuff. But what's important is the local club and youth rugby scene in Austin. And so John Denon, another member of the group, supporters group, wanted to know what your plans are to be involved with the local club and the youth rugby scene. And maybe Mark, you can kind of take this as well to start off with, since you'll kind of be a part of that or heading that up. what's your kind of plan to be out at some of these, schools and elementary schools so you can introduce them to rugby, and then also then working with the local rugby clubs in town?
Yeah, so we're still on what Sammy was saying. We're still very early on in talks in how we're going to sort of structure all of it and how it's going to look. But a big key thing for us is obviously those academies and obviously rugby exposure in Austin. So we're still establishing how it looks, how it's going to look, especially from the seniors, senior academy and on your way down. At the same time is the exposure out, getting out to the high schools. Mason Hearing has been a great support, great help for us, which is really good. Very energetic around this area, which is great. I think it's something that's going to, I think he's going to be a great character for what we need for it to grow. And it's somebody that I'm probably going to rely on a fair bit for, obviously, local information. And then obviously the probably local understanding in what will work and what won't work. And so we've had these discussions. I think we'll definitely have a few more Zoom chats in and around some potential outlooks on what it's going to look like. But definitely that's a key thing for us is definitely get out to the high schools. And again, as I initially said, it's actually about the rugby exposure. It's the AG's exposure into the local community. That's something that we need to do. And I think that's a very important part, as I said, to sort of grow the brand and actually show, we are here, not just as rugby players and or as a rugby club, but we want to be part of the community. So we want to be able to get that out there as soon as we can. And as I said, it's very early days, but that is definitely on our cards, and we want to play them and make sure we play them right.
Nice. Definitely. And it's always good to hear. Again, there's a long history of opinions and thoughts on, again, the original MLR side originated from one of the teams here in town. So, kind of taking that on and bringing that into where we're at now, it's been, I think it's been long enough where the separation doesn't really feel like there's a kind of a close tie, but, we want to have that close tie to the rest of the rugby community in Austin and Central Texas. I mean, we don't, we pull in from San Antonio and things like that too, which is an hour and a half south of here, even all the way up to Killeen, which is about an hour and 20 minutes north, just below Waco area. There's a rugby club up there called Fort Hood, and they're all pretty much all military or ex-military guys that play. And so they'll drive down to the stadium an hour and a half just to come watch a match. So I think stuff like that's important. It's good to hear that you guys.
And just probably on that too, Dustin, when you said talking to clubs, like for us, it's just not about the players as well. We want to be able to, and again, sooner if we can, set up some Zoom conversations with those local club coaches and sort of see sort of where they stand and their expectations of us. And also for us is actually show what we're willing to do for them too, because it's only healthy that we help create a very sort of healthy platform for both player and coaches. And that's something that we're really big on too, because that's another pathway for local coaches to develop and obviously have that progression through. I'm sure we'll find a local a senior academy coach that can help come in and help us coach, because it's definitely a really good flow and effect and pathway for those guys if they're willing and obviously they have that ambition to coach at the highest level. It's something that's there as well, and that's something that Sam and I have spoken earlier about. And I think it's just a healthy thing that we reach out to the clubs as players and also as coaches and just show them sort of where we're at and what we're willing to do. And obviously we need sort of to and fro. We need their engagement as well. So that's something that we're big on and we understand that. That's where I think Mace will come in quite handy. I might put him there as a punching bag first, and I'll step out every now and then
he's a big dude.
Have a couple of things to say.
He'll take a couple blows. He's all right.
Those Zoom calls will start in November with the coaches and the players. So Mason's just in the process of sorting all that out, but that'll happen soon. So for your listeners, the coaches that are listening, we'll connect in November, and looking forward to that. And I think also on the teams, like I've already spoken with Adam and Tane from the Blacks and the Huns, and formed a relationship there. I want to reach out. We want to reach out to all the clubs in the wider Austin, Central Texas area, and especially San Antonio, and even the Valkyries. Like, Mark fathers 2 daughters, I father 3. So and just big supporters of women's rugby.
Oh yeah,
Valkyries
are great to go watch. Yeah, vicious, love them. I love watching the Valkyries.
Vicious, yeah. So we want to cast our net wide and far.
So we'll step back because I don't want to run too much longer on time, and I want to we've got something important since you guys are going to be Texans. We got to have a little competitive match here. But I did have a question. I wanted to go back talking about a little bit of rugby league. You guys started with that. Sam, you played with Manly. Obviously next weekend or this weekend is the grand final. First question is, who do you got in the grand final? And for those who are listening who don't watch any rugby league, watch any NRL, the grand final is basically the championship match in Australia, and of course it's between the Melbourne Storm and the Panthers and Penrith Panthers. So who do you guys have in that match? Who's your money on?
Yeah, you got you.
A good mate of mine's son plays for the Panthers, so and all my family are out west, so they're bugging me that I've got to go for the Panthers. So that's but then my head says, no, forget what my head says. I'm going for Penrith. I like the way they play. They're a young, enthusiastic, very vibrant team, and they're willing to have a go, and that's something that I'd like our G's to be doing next year.
All right.
Yeah, I've done a week of personal development with the Storm, and I love everybody at that organisation because they're so professional and they're unbelievable, and a really good model for what we spoke about. But I'm with Mark. I think it's going to be Penrith's week. I think, and similar to what Mark said, like I'd really like our squad's going to be quite young. And I'd like them to play with the same sort of freedom that the Penrith are playing with at the moment. Yeah. So I love the Panthers to get up.
This next question too, or this question, and then the next one, are you going to make some other listeners go, "Why are you talking about NRL?" I was like, because there's not much other rugby on right now. Damn it.
Yeah, if they can get to a TV and watch this game, they should, because it's a great spectacle. You can't do it
live, but NRL.com, you can always watch the matches in the US 12 hours after they play, which is fine because it's literally the same time, just a day later. But yeah, so that's how I've been watching it. I also think that Penrith will take it, but Cameron Smith, I mean, there's who knows, man. That guy he's our age, Mark, or a year younger than us, and he's still
he's a year younger than us, but he's another referee. You watch how he played the last 2 weeks. He literally refereed. He was the second ref on the field. But that comes with experience. Exactly. That's great. I think that's unreal.
That is so rich coming from Mark. If anybody saw his last 6 years in Japan.
Second referee on the field, fourth referee on the field, whatever it may be. Okay, so last union related question. If you could grab one player from the NRL and bring them over to the MLR, who would you bring over?
I always loved Sean Johnson, who plays for Cronulla at the moment, but he's the Kiwi halfback. His feet are amazing. He's got all the skills. I think he would have been great in rugby union.
I'm a bit local. I'll go for Tommy Trebojevic, who's a fullback. A kid that potentially could play 13, 15, wing, 12. If you needed a really big ball carrier as well, that's somebody that's electric and he's very good in the air.
Okay, nice. I'd say right now I was thinking if we go based on kind of finals play, Clint Gutherson was going to be one of my choices because his semifinal match, he pretty much tried to carry the team by himself and almost did. But I do like Mika Sivo. Mika Sivo. That dude is a monster. So you talk about a beast who will just run people over. Anyway.
No, he's like Sammy Raja 2.0.
All right. Let's stop talking some rugby union and finish this up. So, now that y'all, and you'll find that we use this word a lot here, y'all. Just like you guys have good day. I think Mark is what you said one time in an email to me. So we do say that, but y'all is going to be a big one. You're Austinites. It's important that some of the Austin and Texas facts, and maybe a few rugby questions thrown in here as well. So we're going to play a little game, and you both will be asked the same question. So we'll go the same question. You'll give an answer, Mark. You'll give an answer, Sam, and we'll alternate. Who goes first. The person who gets the most answers correct at the end wins. Period. You don't win anything. You just have the bragging rights to everyone in Australia who cares. And so at least when you get here, you can tell everybody that you won some trivia on the podcast. So are you guys ready? All right.
Yeah.
First question. Texas hasn't always been part of America. How many flags has Texas flown under?
2.
All right, okay, so neither of you got
4.
that one right. That's 6. That's Spain, France, Mexico, the People's Republic of Texas, the Confederate United States, and the United States of America. Yeah.
Wait, back up.
France.
What did you say? France.
Louisiana Purchase. Yeah, so that's
what was the
American history. So Spain, Mexico, and then
Spain.
I was thinking Portugal, Spain, and Portugal.
Yeah. So and then People's Republic of Texas. So we were our own state for our own country for a while. Okay, next question. How many stars are on the Texas
Doesn't surprise
flag?
me.
1.
Oh, yeah, it is 2. 1.
Yep. So there's one flag.
And then red, yeah.
So red, white, and blue in the Texas flag. So
red, white, and blue.
Which is bigger, the U.S. Capitol or the Texas state capitol?
Texas.
U.S. capital or Texas capital? So either Austin or Washington,
so the
D.C.
U.S.
Is
capital
that
is in
what we're talking
Austin.
about?
Or sorry, the state capital is in Austin. The U.S. is in D.C. So which is a bigger building?
Oh, the building. I thought you meant this.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so which is a bigger building?
Okay.
I'll say Washington.
Everything's bigger in Texas.
Yeah, Mark, you're going to go up one on that one. That's correct. Texas, it's bigger by I think like 15 feet taller, and the space is bigger. There's all kinds of everything has got to be bigger in Texas. All right. True or false? Texas was the first state to have a female governor. First state in the U.S. to have a female governor.
Wow, if you think about how Texas has been the last however long.
I'll say false.
I've got to buck the trend then. I've got to go true.
That is true. Texas was the first state to have a female governor.
So you think it'd go the other way.
That one actually kind
Great
of
for Texas.
What is the state mascot? So which animal is the state mascot of Texas? So here are your choices.
Do you want me to go first, Sammy?
I think I know the answer.
Okay,
but
okay. So we have
the
longhorn.
Do you think you know?
No, I wouldn't have a clue. I don't think it's a cow or a bull, but I'll go with
3 choices. So
can I just write down what I think it is first, and then you give us the 3 choices?
So the first one is a roadrunner. The second one is a longhorn, the cow, and the third one is an armadillo.
Oh, I'd have to say the Roadrunner.
Okay, Sam, show
just because the cartoons when they played them here.
No, I didn't have it. I was wrong.
A mule.
I wrote a mule.
Nope,
let's go armadillo then.
On that one, armadillo is the state Texas mascot.
Nice.
All right. So, what is another name that Austin, Texas is known by? It's very popular.
Keeping it weird.
Motto.
Austin,
Texas is known as the.
That's your motto. Oh, it's like not the Rainbow State or whatever. I've read this.
This is also great. I just love asking these questions because I was Australian. You would never.
There's something else. Nah,
right.
I'm dead in the water.
Of the world. So if you do like live music, well, not right now.
Yeah,
but
love
eventually, not right now. All right. So
actually, Mark's daughter Milana is quite the artist. She's a good guitarist and a very good singer.
Maybe get a breakout here in the U.S. when you get here. So Austin has a bridge called the South Congress Bridge. Underneath that bridge is there are a lot of bats, and it's kind of it's like the city mascot, if you will, is the free-tail bat. So every night, how many bats fly out of the Congress Bridge? 1 million, 1.5 million, 3 million, or 3.5 million?
Whoever counted that, well done. I'll go with 3 million.
I thought I was going to, before you gave us the options, I was going to say 2 million, but I'll say 3.5
million.
That's still a lot of bats. That's a lot of rabies flying out there
when you get here. All right. So Austin is known for 2 large events every single year. What are they?
South by Southwest.
You can give it to him already.
Round 1, AG's versus
Seattle. We didn't know that. Oh, unconfirmed officially that officially unofficial. All right, Mark, did you?
No, what was the second one?
So Sam, I'll give you one on that. I'll give you one on that one.
Okay.
All right.
That's
so
Sammy.
We're going to do a comparison here with your state of New South Wales. Who has a larger population in their respective states, Texas or New South Wales?
Texas.
Yeah. You both got that one. That's pretty easy. I believe I don't know how many live in New South Wales. Maybe 8. Not 20.
Not as many as Texas.
26 million in Texas. 26
million. Yeah, it's 26 million in Australia.
There you go. So, in terms of square miles or square meters, whatever, which is bigger, Texas or New South Wales?
Texas.
Yeah, just.
It's actually New South Wales.
Yeah, because I was thinking of your East Coast.
You got quite a.
Because that spans that way.
Yeah, it's like our East Coast kind of comes in, yours kind of bows out a little bit. All right, so we're 4-4 right now. I know.
Oof.
What is the official nickname? What is the official nickname of the state of Texas?
I'd imagine
the Lone Star.
Oh no, I was going with the Star, but I didn't say anything about Lone.
So I'll give it
but
to Sam, because he did have the Lone Star State.
Yeah,
so yes, Texas
Lone
is the
Star
State.
Yeah. I was just thinking of Star.
All right, what is the official state sport of Texas?
Nice.
Yeah,
official state sport.
Those are things that do happen in America.
The official state sport.
State sport of Texas.
Got to be good.
Sam's going.
I'll be shocked if it's not.
Who don't know is American football. Yeah, that's okay. I know other people don't.
The state sport, I reckon, it'd be like a rodeo or something like that.
Mark,
bull riding.
Rodeo is the official state sport of Texas.
Wow. Rodeo. Yeah.
Great guess.
Okay.
Just thinking of cattle and everything, just
all right.
Cowboys.
Yep.
Exactly.
He's going to hit up the rodeo when he goes back. Who scored the first ever try in MLR for Austin? Which player? This if you get this one, I would be shocked.
The halfback.
We'll go by position.
Is it Marcelo?
He wasn't here.
No. He wasn't there. So you don't need a name. You just need a position. Won't guess
the name, but I'll give you a position.
I thought it was a halfback.
Nah,
I'll go hooker.
Winger. Reese Zarnacki was the first. Reese Zarnacki, who played with Austin a little bit last year, and then I think he's kind of stepped away from rugby a little bit and plays with the Blacks, I believe. So good kid.
We're poorer for the loss, Rins.
All right. How many names has Austin been called since the inception of MLR? Sam?
I know of 3. I'm going to say 4, though.
3?
I'll say 3.
Mark, that's one up on you. It has been 3. It was the Austin Elite. Austin Herd for the brief couple months that we worked on that. And then AGs. All right. 6-5 is the score right now. Last question. How many men?
Hope you have a tiebreaker up your sleeve.
I do. How many men's and women's club teams are in the greater Austin area? So not including San Antonio, just in Austin, the greater Austin area.
25.
Okay. Look.
It's way more than that.
Club level teams.
Club level
in Austin. So official clubs. So if you'd say like not the different like first division, second grade, not the tiers,
not the tiers or anything, just all the clubs.
I'm going to say 7.
No, I thought there was more. I'm actually going to say 15.
Surprisingly, it's only 4. So if you don't count high school, because
I'm thinking of all the high school ones.
I guess that's not really fair for us to do that. But
no, that's all right. That's good.
Sorry, I was going through like the San Antonio and the
So if you get that, there's actually quite a few. Like we do get up into the 15s and 20s in Central Texas, but in the Austin area, of course, when we say Central Texas, to get out of Central Texas, you have to drive about 3 hours.
So what do we got there?
We got
the Blacks, the others, and San Marcos.
And the Valkyries. San Marcos.
The Valkyries.
I consider that Austin, but yeah, it's kind of blending into San Marcos. So kind of a tricky question, but. Yes, Mark, you have finished it here. All around applause. Mark Gerrard, winner of the inaugural and probably the last Austin, Texas rugby quiz. So, man. Hey, guys, I don't want to take much more of your time. It's been really great. I know that I've enjoyed chatting with you, getting to know you, and just kind of learning about the style of play, learning about your guys' history and what you're getting ready to do. Any last thoughts as we kind of close this out and let you guys get on with your day and let me get on with my evening?
Mark, you go first, if you want.
No, I just want a huge shout out to the Austin community. Destin, thanks for the opportunity to have a chat and obviously show a bit of what we're about and what we're potentially looking to do over in Austin. I'm extremely excited, as is my family. It's funny, we're going in cycles with my kids. They're happy, they're disappointed, they're excited, they're all over the shop at the moment. But I think once we get over there, I'll appreciate what Austin's all about, and that's something that excites me, especially myself and my family. And probably one other thing, mate, if you can tell me which club I should go play for when I get over there, because I wouldn't mind having a run.
Oh, man. Offline.
Don't have to tell me right now. You can wait till I get there.
Sam, who do you – any last kind of parting thoughts for you?
Yeah, just like I think, again, thanks for – inviting us onto the show because love your work, and there's heaps of these popping up around at the moment, but like it's not easy to do a podcast. Like there's a lot of post production into it. So thanks for your time, mate, and really appreciate it. I think from a team's point of view and our season theme point of view, which is what we want to create is just a really big family atmosphere within the team, and then extend that to anyone else who comes in contact with the team. And so, Dustin, now that you've started this, you were already part of the family, but officially, welcome to the AG family, mate. And then, like Mark said, to the rest of the Austin community, Texas community, anybody who wants to follow the AGs,
up in Houston,
welcome to the family.
They don't need their teams.
No, but like, as soon as you come in contact with us, you're going to see that we're bringing a different style to Austin and to rugby in America, and we're all about inclusiveness and about being a family. And there's a lot of team sports in America, but no one does team sports like rugby does. Like it caters for every shape and size, age, disabilities, gender, anything. Like we cater for it. So, and we're going to leverage off that and make sure that we make this experience really special for everyone involved.
I can't thank you guys enough for some of the comments that you made. You know, inclusivity, being part of a family. It's really what rugby's about. It's why I continue to push stuff like this out for 3 years and try to, continue to, as we say, grow the game. That's kind of a big trend as far as hashtags go and that social media, Mark, that your wife knows about.
Mate, if you need someone to employ, mate, she's pretty good.
We'll chat offline. But yeah, I do think it's great to hear you guys say that, because it's important for us as a community to keep supporting one another, keep backing local community, rugby clubs. And it starts kind of at the lowest level and works its way all the way up to where you guys are at. And you guys then feed back down into the lowest levels by giving your experience and advice and coaching and just helping build that up. And it is something to be grateful for. So I thank you guys. Thank you for coming on to the podcast video now. So yes, they are popping up everywhere. I feel like there's a new one every week. And so we're just a small one, and we do what we can, but it's glad that you guys can come on and chat a little bit of rugby with us. Thank you guys for joining. Mark Gerrard, Sam Harris, the new assistant coach and head coach for the Austin Gilgronis. As always, you can follow us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram. Find us on every platform that you can. You can listen to the podcast on whatever you're listening on now and watching now, or you can find us on Amazon Music now, which is a kind of a new one for us. They have their own podcast channel, Spotify, of course. But as always, my name is Dustin. Thanks for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Looking forward to season 3. Looking forward to the next season of MLR and bringing more lads on in the coming weeks. Thanks for joining us. My name is Dustin. We'll see you on the pitch.